What triggers Ruben?
People being triggered.
Yes. Fuck yeah. Yo,
Like,
same, dude.
if anything is going to trigger me, it's getting triggered. But it doesn't really trigger me. What it does is it breaks my heart a little bit that there's people in the world who are out there getting upset, getting offended, feeling harmed when they don't have to. That's the crazy thing, right? That's the big one that gets me. I feel, and it's not that it necessarily triggers. I feel bad that there's people feeling bad when they don't need to feel bad. That's a bit of a contradiction because I also don't need to feel bad. That's a stupid thing. So see, I just got fucked up in that whole loop.
Well, it's because once you analyze, why something is triggering you, you can eventually rationalize that it's just not worth it. It's just not worth being triggered over. So I think like you were just really quick to get to that point. But like, yo, I'm just guessing, dude. You don't seem like a person that would get triggered easily. Is that right?
I can understand why anyone would want to let anything that anybody else does affect them negatively if you don't have to, right? Like some things you can't avoid. If someone punches you in the face, that hurts, right? Yeah, you can't necessarily avoid that. But like something that somebody said, you don't have to let that hurt you. That doesn't have to be a triggering. Someone's actions, that doesn't need to trigger you. None of that stuff needs to do anything. Like it's yeah, I can firstly, there are legitimate cases of being triggered, right? Like PTSD and things like that, when you're in a circumstance that has led your brain to change or adapt in a certain way. And then when you're in different situations, that might trigger that same sort of thing. I can understand that. But I feel like this term is being thrown around way too much. Right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So with you, is there anything that triggers you?
This is not even like a big thing. But for some reason, dude, when I see somebody littering, like outside, like irresponsibly, I don't know what, it just like inside, I'm like, I look at the garbage and I'm like, yo, I gotta go pick that up. And like something just takes over me, dude. And I literally go and pick it up. And then I say the same thing every time. Yo, it's so fucking easy to just put shit in the garbage bag or just put it in your pocket. And just wait till there's like, you find a garbage. Like, I don't get it. But it just sounds like I'm just trying to be all, what's it called? All woke and shit. But I'm not though. For some reason, it just bothers me. People that are littering. Yeah.
Yeah.
Weird, right?
So specifically, what is it? Is it because you perceive it to be such a simple, easy, high value thing? And that for whatever reason they just don't care about it? Is it the fact that they don't care? Is that what sort of is the triggering part, or it's the littering part that literally triggers you?
There's like a bunch of aspects of it because I've analyzed it a few times. So first, it's that they're like being disrespectful to their country, and most cultures they're very proud of their country, and I just feel like just throwing trash on the ground. It's like, yo, like fuck this place. Like I don't give a shit. And then also it's just really lazy. Like, yo, like put it in your pocket, in your bag, or just hold on to it. Like who gives a fuck? You know what I mean? Till you get home or whatever. And there are garbages literally everywhere in every country. Like I've never been in any place in the world where I couldn't find a garbage bin like mad easy. And then it's just like they can see that there's other people around, but they're just like, oh, I just don't care. Like I've seen a dude come out of a 7-Eleven and just like, boom, like right there, right in the front door, just throws his garbage right fucking there and keeps walking. Like there's mad people watching. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So that guy gives no fucks. He's
that guy gives no fucks.
That guy gives, which like I get, but that's one of those things where like if you don't give fucks in that area and you keep doing that, the world ends up being a giant trash heap. That could be avoided easily. I get you. So now let's intro the pod.
Welcome back to Idiots Squared. Definitely the most open-minded podcast in the world. where two complete fucking idiots are just trying to figure out what this shit is all about. Don't forget to subscribe, give us a like, and share this video with all your friends and family.
Agree. Can I add one more thing? And
Yeah.
jump down in the comments with Jesus of Nazareth.
Oh yeah, dude.
Shout
I
out
love Jesus of Nazareth.
Yeah, shout out Jesus. You want to come on the pod?
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so this week's topic is triggering. What is it? Who gets affected by it? What the hell is the deal with any of it? Do you know many people that get triggered, guys?
Yes. Remember I brought up my ex-girlfriend with you the other day?
Okay.
Yeah, the redhead. I remember that she easily got triggered a lot. But she was kind of like angry at like her situation at the time. So I think she was easily triggered because she was just annoyed with like her current life setting. Maybe not lifestyle per se, but where she was living, where she was working. Other than her, I mean, like we joke around, right? I don't know if I'm close to anybody that really does get triggered easily. I remember that as kids, we would always bother people that were triggered easily for some reason. As soon as we found someone that was easily getting upset at things, we would just like push their buttons even more. Yeah. And I'm trying to remember who it was that was like that we were just constantly boom, 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 boom until he would explode, and then we just like loved doing that to him.
Yeah. So,
right?
Yeah, like such a similar experience. Like as soon as you would find someone that would easily get set off about something like silly in obviously my opinion or our opinion, right?
Yeah.
You would hammer that thing.
Yeah.
It's the reason is because it's just such an obvious weak point. You know what I mean? Like, why would you let whatever that trivial thing is get to you like that? You know what I mean? It's literally like if you have triggers, it's like having a whole bunch of buttons. Like, and then, okay, so firstly, there's different levels of triggers, right? Some triggers are entirely valid and legitimate. Like if you've been in war, you've been in a horrible situation, and that's changed the way that your brain perceives certain things. I think that's a valid sort of trigger to be around other things that might trigger that. Okay, but so much of the way the term is used, the word is used these days, it's not accurate. It's not really triggering. They're making mountains out of molehills kind of thing. So essentially, it's just like walking around with a big button or lots of buttons all over you saying, hey, push this and watch me go. Like, if you push this, you can control my entire emotional state. Do you know what I mean? Like, choosing to have a trigger. I think some cases people they don't choose to have the trigger, and I think they're the legitimate cases. But I think a lot of the cases that we hear of these days are definitely choices. People definitely choose to be triggered.
I gotta tell, yeah, I agree. I agree. Sorry to like backtrack a little bit. I gotta tell you a story. I just thought of it. Because me and my brother used to trigger my dad all the time. my real dad. Right? Yeah. So because I call my stepdad dad. So that when I talk about my dad, I say my real dad. But anyways, we were like, I think I was maybe 13 or 14. So my brother would have been 11 or 12. No, 10 or 11. And we're in Poland. And my dad was living there at the time. So we went to go visit him. He was staying at, I remember, Intercontinental Hotel. But my dad would say it, Intercontinental. That's how we loved it, Intercontinental. The whole way there, we were saying, Robert, I can't wait to get to Intercontinental. Finally, we get there, and he's like, okay, guys, listen. Don't embarrass me here, okay? I know lots of people here, okay? I do a lot of business here. Don't embarrass me. So me and Robert are just like, oh, dude, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We're waiting for our moment. As soon as we get into the lobby of the hotel, my dad's like in the center of it, and I run up to him and I slap his ass and I say, that's a mad nice ass. Smack. and he flipped out. Dude, he started stampering like a fucking child. It was insane. And he lost it, bro. And I was thinking, like, yo, like the way he reacted to it is way more embarrassing than getting his ass slapped by his son. So it just blew my mind. I was like taken back. Like, yo, like he's doing a way better job embarrassing himself right now. And it was quite the thrill, I have to say. Yeah.
That is a hilarious story. Isn't it a funny thing? Like you just did an action, like you smacked him on the bomb, right? And made a statement, mad nice bomb, and smack him, right? But then his reaction to that was the thing that actually would have caused the embarrassment. You know what I mean? Like if he had just laughed and gone like, "The fuck are you two doing?" or "What are you doing?" Right? Or just given you a funny look, the whole situation just would have been nullified, and you guys could have laughed about it somewhat. You know what I mean? After the fact, right? But the fact that reaction, now you've got this memory burned into your mind forever.
Yeah. Oh man, I can picture it right now, dude. I remember what the lobby looked like and everything. Yeah, man, that was funny. So
we took you back, guy.
Yeah, you were saying something before. Sorry, I went off track.
No, that was a great story. No, I was just saying, like, I think it's just such an interesting phenomenon. I don't really think about it very often, right, with the triggering, but it's just I've seen some things come up in the last few weeks, and I've heard some people that like I've interacted with say it a few times around me, and I'm like, it baffles me, right? Like I can actually understand, like how people might get triggered, but like I can't imagine perpetually being triggered. Like I can't imagine living in a state of being triggered for very long because like you said, once you analyze it, once you think about it, you get to this point where you realize like it's my choice how I'm choosing to see this. You know what I mean? Like some people get triggered when people post pictures online. Like, like you're choosing to look at that. Like what? Like, does that sort of make sense? Like, like people literally follow people that trigger them.
What do you think it is? Do you think some people are looking to be triggered and trying to get other people triggered along with them so they can feel like, yeah, like I'm making some sort of statement here, getting my name out there, and really they're not all that triggered about it?
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird, right? What it seems like to me, well, not as a whole, but I feel like there could be these pockets, or that there is these pockets of being triggered as it's like a way of life now, right? Like it's like an identity thing. Like people identify as someone who gets triggered a lot. Like I don't know, it seems to do something for them because like outside, like being triggered to me isn't valuable. It doesn't eventuate in anything productive. It seems net negative, right? Like it seems very silly to get triggered by something. Like instead of getting triggered, do an action. Like instead of you getting triggered by someone dropping rubbish, just go and pick the rubbish up and put it in the bin. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's probably a more practical way to do it. Or have the trigger momentarily and then use it to go, oh, I'll just go pick it up, put it away, then my trigger goes. Right? Whereas I feel like for some people, this could be becoming a way of life. Like it's literally their prerogative to be triggered. Like it ties into offense. Like I feel like some people nowadays are just wanting to be offended. And it just shocked me. I was like, I couldn't imagine, like I struggle to imagine a world where that is a way of life, like where people would choose that way of life. Like if I was free to choose a way of life, which I am to a degree, I definitely wouldn't be choosing that. Like, does that make sense?
Where's the dopamine response? Like what is the dopamine response that's associated with identifying as being triggered, you think?
So I don't know specifically about the dopamine response, but I do. There's a lady who wrote who's written a couple of amazing books. Her name is Lisa Feldman Barrett, and one of my favorite books that she's written is How Emotions Are Made. Okay, she's got another book, 7.5 Lessons About the Brain, which is fantastic as well. But she has this theory, or she pushes this theory of constructed emotions, saying that like we construct our own emotions. And she also talks about how the brain is essentially just a prediction machine. So what I think ends up happening with these people is that they've previously been hurt somewhere, right? And so then they've sort of learnt this. And so when other situations that threaten them or are similar to that previous hurting occur, it triggers that same response again, right? Or it causes that same response again. So I think like sometimes I feel like, especially the case with PTSD and things like that, people get stuck in these loops that they can't break out of, like a cycle. Yeah. Something happens. This is my response, makes it this, and it closes, right? That kind of thing. But with others, I think that like the triggers are so trivial, like they're arbitrary triggers. Like there's no real meaning to them. It's as if they're choosing to have them to give themselves an identity. That kind of makes sense. You know, like it's an easy example. Yeah. So somebody who gets triggered with certain words, you know, like, or you know how now we have trigger warnings on everything? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this is why I love comedy, by the way. I love comedy because it's essentially a comedian's job to deliberately trigger people, like to push the limits, you know what I mean? To say shit would normally not be okay to say because they're finding some truth in it and they're making light of it, right? Like that's why I really love comedy because it triggers lots of people. Just like you said earlier, where there's like if you know somebody's got one, it's like you just can't not push it. And I think the reason that is because it shows a level of fragility, right? And I don't know if there's something intrinsic within us humans, if we want to help to try and make each other more robust or strong or whatever, but like if there's an opportunity there to flick the switch or push the button, we tend to do it. But I don't know. I'm confused as hell with this triggering thing, to be honest. Like I can understand it. I understand the loops that get created. I can understand all of that. The dopamine stuff, I'm not so sure about, but it just as a behavior, it just sort of baffles me that people choose to get triggered by such silly stuff. You know what I mean?
It seems like this whole triggering identity thing was really started by the internet, social media, right? So I think that's where you see it the most, and that's where you're exposed to it the most. And what I think people get joy out of is commenting on something that they've been triggered by a video or a post or whatever it may be, and seeing if other people will like that post and then jump on board and also start attacking the post or the video or whatever clip it is, right? I think they feel the sense of I'm fighting the good fight in their own perspective. Maybe that could be like that could be a certain percentage of the population who does that, because it's rare to see. Well, actually, do you think that you're seeing it more in society because it stemmed from social media and now people have gotten so used to doing it online that now they're beginning to do it in public as well? This triggering shit?
Yeah, I'm not sure, right? Like we spoke about this before, which was back in the day, there was a saying, sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me, right? And somewhere along the line, words became violence. And I just don't know how that's the case, right? Like, I feel like we used to know that physical things could cause physical harm, right? And then with words, it's actually our interpretation of the word, right? Like, what you say doesn't need to have any effect on me. It's my choice if it does, right? You know, like, your words can't actually hurt me. It's up to me to make them into something that is either like good or bad, right? It's my interpretation of them. It's how I choose to perceive them. It's how I choose to take them, right? Like if somebody who I didn't know and, had never had an interaction with comes up and tells me that I'm a terrible person, right? I'd be like, how would you even know? Do you know what I mean? I would never choose to get offended. I'd actually, even if I would even care, I might ask them, oh, based on what, or, oh, could you give me the top 5 things I'm terrible at? Like, but even that's more valuable than getting upset. Do you know what I mean? But we put like, you might not have ever met someone and they might say something, and there's people now that are getting triggered by these words and they don't even know the person. So I feel like there's something we've got something has changed where now it's as if people want to be offended. They want to be triggered. They want to be they don't want to be in control of their emotions. They're giving their control to everybody else. All right. And so I thought about this a bit, and way smarter people than I have thought through this as well. And what it sort of comes down to is whenever you blame other people for anything, right, you're actually giving your power to those people. But whenever you take ownership of something, right, you own it. You take responsibility for everything that you could have done, right, or did or didn't do, or any number of those different things. But you take radical ownership. You're actually taking the power within yourself. Okay. But as soon as you start to blame, you give that power to other people. Like if you blame someone for a bad outcome, you're giving them control over your outcomes. Yeah. If you take ownership for that bad outcome, right, you're taking your power in. You can now control that outcome in the future because you've owned your responsibility, what you did or you didn't do. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. Actually, as I was maturing, I would say, I started realizing that it's just easier to take responsibility for shit, to eat it. It feels way better.
That's right. Okay, that ties into and we'll keep going with this, but this ties into another concept. Things that don't feel good in the moment, right? Like you said, like eating it. That's like your colloquial way of saying, like, you have to own it. It feels bad, but if I own this in the moment, I deal with this feeling bad right now, I'm free to feel better in the future. Whereas blaming feels good in the moment, but leads to long-term shit stuff or long-term pain. Yeah. So it's often when we lean too much into comfort in the moment, we end up with discomfort long-term. Whereas if we lean into discomfort in the moment, we get comfort long-term. Yeah. Think about like ice baths. Ice baths suck. They're super hard. You don't want to jump into freezing cold water. As soon as you put your foot in, every cell that's touching the water tells your brain, jump the fuck out of this water. Right. But if you get used to it, you learn to stay calm and breathe and deal with that. You get all these amazing benefits. Going to the gym is hard, but you get all these amazing benefits. Studying is hard, but you do it, you get all these amazing benefits. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like all of this stuff, like that's hard in the moment or difficult or painful in the moment or discomfort leads to long-term comfort, Whereas if you lean into comfort, you do the easy thing in the moment, the thing that isn't painful, the thing that feels like really good right then and there, typically leads to discomfort long-term.
I have a question, Guy. This happened to me at the workplace often before, where I would try and take responsibility for certain mistakes that were made or things that weren't done properly, right? And I would never bring anybody else into the conversation. I would say, yeah, that was my bad. I'm gonna go fix that right now, sort of thing. And in my mind, I was always wondering if my bosses would notice that, oh, Daniel is a good team player, or he may be a good leader because he takes responsibility for some things and he doesn't like sell anybody else out or doesn't bring anyone else into the conversation. And I always like thought, would they actually realize that? Are they actually realizing that? Because it does take someone, analyzing a lot of things to understand that. And so I don't know if that ever benefited me per se, but I always sort of carried myself on that way anyways, just in case somebody would realize that. And then I would gain a much higher level of trust with that person.
Well, so the short answer to your question is, yeah, absolutely, you benefit because you did it for, like, the most important thing is do it for you, right? That's the number one thing is like take that ownership and do those things for yourself, right? First and foremost, not because anyone might notice or anything else, just like because it's a good way to live your life. It's just you're cleaning your closet essentially, and you're not giving power to anyone else by blaming. The number one, like But whether or not someone else notice, like it's hard because it's so situational. Like, yeah, there's absolutely people in the world that will notice that and they'll go, fantastic. Like, here's another person that takes ownership that does this. We're going to keep, we're going to utilize him more often, or we're going to utilize her more often. Fantastic. But a lot of the time, I can imagine, like, if you just take lots of ownership for everything and you're willing to fix everything and do everything, people can just get lazy and just be like, yo, he'll just own everything and end up solving it for us. So we'll just keep, like, we could just keep fucking up. So, like, if you're around other people that take ownership, fantastic. I'm sure it'll be very, very productive and lead to lots of amazing things. If you're not around other people that practice ownership, you probably end up just doing a lot of stuff, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because you're going to learn how to do all these things really well. But it also means that other people could just ride off your good work as well. Kind of makes sense? Like, I think they're probably the two easiest sort of, opposite ends of the spectrum there. And there's obviously a scale all the way in between, but yeah.
You ever get triggered during training if something in the gym's annoying you?
No way. I know someone that does get triggered though.
Yeah, what happens? What happens?
So, at the gym, I believe in what's called like judgment-free zone, right? So like, I really don't give a shit what anyone in the gym is doing, right? Provided it's not going to hurt anyone else. Okay. So outside of doing things that are incredible, like that could be physically, right, or even mentally, like, no deranged stuff, no really weird deranged stuff, like none of that stuff, and none of the physically dangerous stuff. But in the middle, just do whatever you want, right? I just don't like. I'm trying to live my life. I couldn't care less, right? And so we let kids come to the gym. We got like, young kids all the way up to older people that are, grandparents retired, right? So we've got a huge age spectrum. So some of the younger kids, obviously very comfortable in the space. And so they like taking their shirts off, and they're working hard on their physiques, trying to build it up. And I get it. Like, it's very hard to know yourself or see yourself, and mirrors can be very useful for that, especially for sort of getting an idea of your reflection back at yourself, and then watching yourself while you train so you can see if things are even. And there's a whole host of benefits, right? These kids take their shirts off and they look in the mirror, and they're little kids. Like, they're not big, they're not impressive, right? But they're on their journey, they're making progress. And what's impressive is at a young age, they're in there training hard, right? So I respect that. There's another guy in the gym who gets immensely triggered by this. And he's a big dude, man, with a great physique, strong, athletic, like he's got all the stuff. But he gets so triggered by these little kids with their shirts off. And so, like, he mentions it to me, and I'm like, no, I couldn't care less, man. I'm like, good on them, do them, like, more power to them. Like, I don't mind at all. He's like, it just piss you off. They like think they're looking like big and stuff. And I'm like, I don't care what they're thinking. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't bother me. I'm like, it's good on them. And I'm like, why you get so triggered? It's like, bro, because it's just like taking their shirts off and like flexing and thinking they're massive. And I'm like, I don't know if you can know that they're thinking they're massive, for one. I'd be like, well, why don't you just take your shirt off and start doing that too? He's like, no, I couldn't do it. And it's an interesting psychology, right? But no, honestly, not much triggers me in the gym. I must admit, the only thing that used to trigger me in the gym was when someone would sit on a piece of machine, like equipment that I was wanting to use, and if they were just texting on it, right? But it wouldn't trigger me. It was just like frustrating. So I'd always go up and be like, hey, you're going to be very long. Could I work in, et cetera, et cetera? And if they're like, oh, I'm busy, or, like, weren't accommodating, I'd just be like, sweet, I'll just change my exercise. Right? Because why would I want to get upset? Why would I want to get worked up? Why would I want to let that person sitting on their phone, not training hard or whatever, wreck my day? I could never justify it. Once I went through getting triggered enough earlier on, I could never justify it again. What about you?
Yeah. So no, like before I would get annoyed by things, but I've gotten to the point where you're at now, actually, where fuck it. Like, I'm not gonna let this person control my feelings. So forget about it. But I always thought it was funny. Didn't really trigger me. I just thought people doing barbell curls on a squat rack is funny when there's only one squat rack in the gym.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
if there's a bunch,
Keep
whatever,
barbell
dude.
curls.
Yeah. But when there's one and Buddy's doing bicep curls there, it's like, guy, you know,
Yeah. Move
how
over
many
for the
squat?
big guys.
What's that?
Move over for the actual compound movement. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we can't do this anywhere else. You could do this everywhere, bro.
I haven't really seen that like recently though. That was something I saw more of when I first started training out. But like nowadays, I think people are aware, you know? I believe they are because the culture, the gym culture is just growing like huge since we started working out actually. Like I think during our workout lifetime, like really the culture has shifted. Before it was all about chest. These days it's all about legs in the gym, I feel like.
Yeah,
Have
yeah,
you noticed that too?
yeah, yeah. It's like there's all these cycles that happen, and it's
Yeah.
like we're in another phase of the cycle, you know. But yeah, I know I agree with you. Gym culture's grown. I think gym etiquette has got, you know, people are more mindful. I think, you know, more education is always better. But like, you know, there's still pockets where all this stuff happens, which is hilarious. Okay, so with this whole emotion stuff, with that Lisa Feldman Barrett, we'll tie this back up. She has this theory of constructed emotions, which simply says that we make our own emotions. Our brain makes predictions. So we're in a circumstance. If we've been in a similar circumstance, our brain will predict what we did last time. Okay, and that's where these trigger loops can happen. We get stuck getting triggered, that kind of thing. So, highly recommend anyone reading her book. I'll have a short summary of it in the doc that we attach to this podcast. Um, but essentially, with that, like when you sort of fully understand what she's communicating there, you realize that at a high level, you actually have a choice for how you feel whenever you want to. And it's not saying that emotions are bad, but emotions are these things, but don't let them control you, right? Or don't let your mind produce emotions that end up controlling you or getting you in situations that don't afford you the outcomes you want, right? And so, like with the whole triggering thing, I just why why choose to have such bad reactions or responses to things when really at the fundamental level you could choose to perceive them differently? Yeah.
I would love to understand if there is that dopamine response. Like going back to what I said earlier about them feeling that they're fighting some sort of good fight.
Yeah, no, I think you're on. Yeah, we should look into that definitely. I wonder if there
Yeah.
is any effect on that.
It could that could be like the loop, right? Like like each time like I speak out, I have people backing me up or I'm fighting the good fight. I'm making a difference out there, but it's not
Yeah,
working.
but that because that ties into the identity thing, right? Like if you're sort
Yeah.
of a bit lost and you're not okay, yeah, because okay, if you blame other people for all this other stuff, you're essentially giving your power away, right? All the time. Think about it in that terms, okay? So then all of a sudden now you can sort of find other groups of people who are very similar to you by playing into this whole trigger game, right? Like you can just join the blame party with a whole group of other people who blame the same thing that you're blaming, and you've sort of found your clique. You've got your community now. I wonder how much of a role that plays.
I think it does play a large role. Like groupthink is like drugs for some people, for most people probably, right? Like
Like for
remember on the
to a degree,
yeah.
you can't be a truly independent thinker, but you can be less dependent, I suppose. But no.
It feels great when you have confirmation bias on certain things, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like it's just like a confirmation bias feeling for them. Like it does energize you. Like if I when I hear someone speaking about a topic, I'm like, yeah, like that's exactly what I thought or I read too. Like you feel good in the moment about that. So I imagine very similar type of response in
That's
a negative way, but
yeah.
positive as at the
You
same
know, no.
time.
That's a really strange loop. Don't you think?
Yeah, yeah. There's some crossover, dude.
Yeah, man, that's got some twists and some freaky
Yeah,
stuff happening in there. But
yeah.
like, Wow. Yeah, that is a weird ass loop to get stuck in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've seen.
I just want to think about it now. Like,
It is strange. I'm trying to put myself in the mind of a person. So I saw this video. I can't remember exactly what happened, but I think this girl was upset at this cafeteria, and she was just yelling at these people about. I don't know if it was a racial issue. It was a social issue. It was absurd, obviously. And I was trying to put myself in her mind and like that feeling of just yelling at the not the customers, sorry, the people working there, and just going on and on. And then obviously they have the camera out because she's recording it. And then they always say, I'm recording you. Look, now everyone's going to see how you've been treating me. So right there, if no one's agreeing with her in the restaurant, she's like, oh, well, people will definitely agree with me when I post this. Fuck yeah, I'm going to take this place down. When I post this, someone's going to come here and close this business down. And my face is going to be on the newspaper, on the front page. Oh,
yeah, it's like it's such an artificial self confidence and self justification, isn't it?
yeah.
Like, okay. While you were saying that, I was thinking to like it made me think. We recently just had Australia Day in Australia on the 26th of January, right? And it it's it's a bit of a controversial topic and day in the current times, right? Because um, we white people, okay, I said we, that's weird, but uh, Caucasians colonized Australia, okay, mainly from the British Empire, right? And so they sent slaves across, and what's his name, Captain James Cook came out here as well, and we essentially enslaved the native people. Okay, the people that came across and did this did horrible things to the indigenous population, slavery, murder, destroying their communities, like a whole bunch of bad stuff. Okay, so people typically say that the 26th of January is Australia Day. It's the day Australia was discovered or founded, right? Then there's another group of people who quite rightfully say that it's Invasion Day. Yeah, maybe we should celebrate on a different day because it's a little bit. So a whole host of people were out protesting Invasion Day, okay, because they think that we should change the day and all the rest of it. And a reporter was out there asking them questions. And like the people who protest, and I think all power to them, right? I think that there is valid or validity to wanting to change the day and maybe talking about how we, do these things. And it could be done. I think it could be done in a better light, could be done in a more inclusive way. Um, anyway, so they're out protesting and they're very, social justice warrior kind of vibe. Okay. Like trying to do the right thing, this kind of stuff. But when confronted with some legitimate questions about this, right? So the reporter said, "Oh, okay, what are you out here doing?" And they're like, "Oh, protesting. Yeah, what are you protesting? Change the day." And you go, "Oh, so you wanted if they change the day, would everything be okay?" And the lady's like, "No." And he's like, "Well, so what's wrong with the day?" And she goes, "This is the day that they invaded." And he goes, "Oh, so 26th of January is when we invaded, or they invaded this country." And then she's like, "I'm not going to get caught out by you because it isn't the day, right?" Like it's anyway. There's this whole big thing that goes into it, right? But all I was saying is they're out protesting, okay? Then somebody starts asking legitimate questions, and then they get triggered. And so at triggering, but what I'm trying to get at with this one is, I don't know if in this circumstance they use getting triggered to not have to change their mind, if that makes sense. Like they get triggered, so they get reactive because he was leading them down a path that would force them to have to sort of change their beliefs about it. They were wrong with their rationale for why they're protesting, but they weren't willing to see it. So as he was taking them down the path to see that they might have been a little bit off on their rationale, at some point along there, the person gets triggered, which is like it's like it's a protection mechanism against fragility, right? She was going down the path, about to realize that everything that she was there doing was off false pretenses. And instead of getting to that point, she just reacts or gets triggered to him. And then she's like, that's it. I'm not saying anything else. Bye. And walks away. That was a very confusing way to describe that.
But I completely understand you,
Yeah.
like 100%. And what concerns me is that that person will go right back into the protests and just protest even harder, like even have more passion for what they're doing, and will probably not even second guess or think about it more, or maybe they will. But that's like the concerning part, is that, for example, like if you were to actually sit down with that lady one on one at a dinner, I think that you could end on a note where she is understanding of your point and understanding that she's there on false pretenses. But then as soon as she goes back to her group, right, or she goes back to her family or her friends who are also in this sort of similar group think, she's right back at it again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But this is where it comes down to. It's people's epistemology, right? Your beliefs define what is true and what isn't true. And so I think that there exists a class of beliefs that are fragile in nature, okay? And there are classes of beliefs that produce robustness or anti-fragile. And I think that for whatever reason, we used to have more robust beliefs. And over time, we're starting to develop more and more fragile belief systems, or belief systems that lead to fragility. Like we want things to be true even though they're not. And so whenever something isn't like sort of meta true, it's expensive to maintain it. You have to keep up this whole web of intricacies to maintain that thing, because it itself doesn't persist. And I think truths are things that themselves persist. You know what I mean? Like they're contained within themselves. Whereas lies or mistruths or things that aren't, they require a lot of continuous maintenance. And that's what I observe with some of these fragile books. Like with example with the Australia Day thing, these people were so convinced that what they were doing was right. But then when they were presented with new information that didn't blow up all of their beliefs, but it actually just showed them that they might have been off a little bit on certain places, they completely choose to deny those. Because if they let that in, it would sort of crumple a whole bunch of other stuff that they spent a lot of time and energy on. What do you think about the beliefs?
I just wanted to continue what you were saying. If the thing that they're doing crumbles, like I feel that is a benefit though.
Long term,
Because yeah, long term it's a benefit for everybody involved, really. I mean, protesting.
But short term, it feels as if your entire world is crumbling. That's why it's so hard, right? Like, can you imagine if you've spent all this time and energy trying to maintain this thing, and then this one new piece of information comes in and destroys it? That could feel as if your entire world was crumbling.
Are people afraid of shame?
Yeah, I think that's a big part, but I think it's also they're afraid of actually, seeing a different thing or seeing a different, because they've spent so much time and energy investing in this other thing. Right? I know for myself, one of the biggest, most freeing things that I ever did was not be afraid to be wrong. Right? I used to be afraid of being wrong all the time, and it crippled me. Like, it was a crippling thing. I would get embarrassed. I get all of these different things, and as soon as I acknowledged that, and that you can't actually ever be right unless you're willing to be wrong. It just freed me from all of this stuff. And so now I'm always trying to look to be wrong. I'm trying to find new stuff to figure out where I might be wrong, or, you know what I mean? I actively try to seek it. And don't get me wrong, it's still tough. All right. But once you lean into that ownership and you realize that taking that ownership only feels bad for a split second. And then as soon as you own it, you get empowered, right? You get your power back. That becomes addictive, in my opinion.
While I was in university, I remember we always had to be very acceptive of new information coming in. Like if a new study came in that showed different results or something new, we would always have to be quite accepting of that and adapt it to our knowledge base, as well as use it when building a study or doing a paper, right? And I think learning that from university gave me the ability to also do that in real life. Because
Yeah.
if I'm wrong about something and I'm in an argument with family or a friend and they explain to me, well, Daniel, or well, Polska, blah, 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 I can accept it, right? Easier now. Sometimes it's difficult at first because I might think that I'm still right about something, but I won't close the conversation. I'll say my point. I'll continue listening to them, and eventually I can get to the point where my mind is changed, right? And I feel I do that with information as well. If me and you were, we're doing a podcast and we're talking about like being triggered, for example, and I say something, and you, well, Daniel, like it's actually, have you thought about, have you, have you thought about it this way? It feels good to take it into the consideration and then adapt it to your knowledge base. Actually, it actually feels good.
No, I agree. But that takes work to get there. And it's this sort of inverse problem, right? Where the people, like, I gotta stop saying the people, right?
What's that?
I got to stop saying the people. Right? It's just it's a stupid, it's a silly thing. So for us now, that wasn't always the case. And you're right, like the university evidence-based stuff can teach you those kinds of things. And being around other people who are intellectually curious and are trying to find answers to questions. And it does become addictive. Like I love when we're having a conversation and you say something that I haven't thought of, or present something to me in a way that is actually more useful than the way I'd been thinking about it. Or if I present a problem and you go, well, have you done this and this? Oh, fantastic. And so that's sort of, I really love that. And it often is a shock to me when people present problems. Like, so if you're talking to somebody and they start saying something that's happening in their life that's a problem, or something bad's happening, you go, oh, have you tried X, Y, and Z? And they get the shits at you. And I was like, I could never really understand that, because I always really appreciated if somebody said, well, what about doing this and this? I'd be like, oh, okay, I'll go try it. But it seems as if there are two groups of people, right? People who do appreciate that sort of thoughtful feedback or input, and other people who don't. They just want you to feel sorry for them, or to, I don't know, give them a hug or pat them on the back, or say it's all going to be okay. That kind of relate, because I think that there's some similarity between the people who like to be challenged with ideas and to have new things presented to them in that way.
I've definitely, I've definitely seen that for sure. I feel like my mom is like that actually. She doesn't like hearing the truth about things, but we've had so many discussions. I think I got her to the point where she appreciates the truth now. She really appreciates the truth about things that she is biased in, obviously, like we all do. But when we get into arguments sometimes and I point things out to her, she gets really defensive. But recently, she's become much more acceptive of those things, and it's because I've explained to her, I'm just trying to be a really good son, trying to be also a really good friend, letting you know of these things that maybe you haven't considered before, so we can have a better relationship, so we don't have to come back to these arguments over and over again.
Yeah,
And it's worked.
It's like a loop, bro. Because if you don't deal with it, you just keep repeating the same things. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's so important to come to a common ground with people. Yeah, that's the last thing I want to say about that.
So what you just said, so you said the truth, okay? And I struggle with this all the time, because there isn't just a truth. It really does, but depend on your epistemology, on what you believe, right? What you believe to be true defines the truths that you see or whatever. So what you're doing when you speak to your mom is you're communicating your truth, right? And you know where you're coming from and you know your intentions with doing that. And I think if we all communicated our truths, but we were true to ourselves first, okay, we would approximate like global or meta truths much better. But because now we're so worried about offending people or not wanting to say the wrong thing or whatever, we're always maneuvering what we say and what we do to try and account for everybody else, that we've sort of lost track of the ability to approximate truth. And now it's just a hodgepodge of bullshit. like, like seriously.
Yeah.
Like I this is what I found in my own life over the last, I don't know, say probably 13 or 14 years. I actively seek people out who willing to speak their truth no matter what. Like, I love people that just say it how they see it, right? Bad, good, like, doesn't matter as long as they just speak their truth. I actively, like, I feel, this is probably a trigger for you, guy. This is probably a trigger. People who tell you what they think you want to hear.
People that tell you what? Sorry, you cut out, bro.
People that tell you what they think you want to hear.
Right, right. That's dangerous.
Yes.
Yeah, yes, men or yes, people are dangerous. Telling people what they want to hear is dangerous.
Yeah, yeah, it really
Absolutely.
is. So I just, through my life experience and through everything else, I've sort of developed an aversion to people like that now. And I really, as soon as somebody starts, my favorite one is when somebody gives you a compliment that's like, so, like, you yourself know it couldn't be true. It's just like the biggest red flag. Like, oh, you're so amazing. You're like, I'm so not amazing with that. Like, that is such a stretch. That was embarrassing to listen to that. Like, just embarrassing in front of, like, you know what I mean? Like, that was, you think I'm an idiot. Like, that's more, I'm more insulted that you think that I would go along with that. That kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, like girl told me before that I got a big dick, and like I knew she was full of shit because there's no way I got a big dick. All right, like I fucking know if my dick is big. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, babe.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. What she called? Oh, a machete. She said, yeah, this thing is not a machete, sweetheart. Definitely not.
It's more like a pocket knife. Okay, relax.
Yeah. Definitely more like a pocket knife.
But no, honestly, is like, do you get like, I'm sure you would have laughed when that happened. I would have laughed if that happened to me. But like, does that not? It doesn't. It just makes me feel a bit queasy in the stomach.
Yeah, queasy. That is the emotion, right? It's like, oh,
yeah.
You're right.
It's off-putting.
Yeah.
It's legit. But I think like we times have changed, and I think there's more and more of that present. I don't think we used to be as much like that. I think we were a lot harsher with each other. And when I say harsh, I just mean real. All right, like people often say the truth is harsh. Okay, so let's talk about this in relation to something that we both care about, which is, people's health status. Like living a good life. I care about it because I was a chubby kid, and I didn't want to be a chubby kid, and so my life has grown and expanded in ways I couldn't imagine because of taking my physical activity and my physical preparedness into my own hands. So when somebody is overweight or obese or has excess body fat, okay, and somebody else says to that person, "You're fat," right? To me, it seems like in society, that's now perceived as a bad thing. The person who said that the fat person was fat is the bad person. Is that about your take on it at the moment as well?
Dude, it's crazy because when I was in school, we had professors. I remember one specifically, and she was telling us that I think it was a friend of hers or something, would go to people who were at McDonald's that were really obese and they had their children there as well, really obese, and would try and like talk to them to say, guys, this is probably not a good idea that you're bringing your kids to McDonald's. Think about their health. Think about this. And I remember being really blown away by that when she told us that story. But I was thinking you could never do that these days because no professor in the health field would actually go out of their way to try and, you know, do that to somebody today. I don't think because they're way too aware that everybody's super hypersensitive, like you were saying, more so than before.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So that's a good way to put it. Hypersensitive, or easily triggered, right? So I just want to hammer this thing home, right? So if I'm fat, okay, and then somebody says to me that I am fat, and I get offended by that, who has the problem with being fat? It's me, isn't it? Right? Because I'm the one that doesn't like being fat if I get offended by that. Because if they're just saying that I'm fat and I am, well, yeah, duh, right? But if I get upset at that, that's actually showing that I have the problem with being fat. It's I'm trying to live a lie, right? And I'm getting upset that they're actually exposing that lie. That kind of, I feel
Yeah,
like
that's when it becomes dangerous.
that's what I mean.
Yeah,
It's that there's more and more of this happening. If that makes sense. Like I see
absolutely.
part of the triggering thing.
Absolutely. And it's funny how certain social issues are being protected and other ones are not. One of the social issues being protected is obesity for some reason, and it has such a large impact on health.
Absolutely.
It's absurd. And what's another big one now? Um, I can't think
There's
of a
the
good.
whole trans thing with the men having babies.
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's just gotten out of control with that. Like, man, that's just
Yeah,
like this weird loop that's just growing and growing, and I'm wondering when that's gonna explode.
yeah. So do you remember? I don't know if it was last year or the year before about the woman getting sworn in America, and they're like, "Oh, can you define what a woman is?" And she's like, "Yeah, scientist going for some high position in the American government," and she's like, no, I don't feel confident defining what a woman is, or and it's like we had a definition for a very long time. It covered things pretty well, and we could append it to say that yes, there are a men who believe that they're women and would like to live their lives as women with the same, genitalia and whatever else they would like to do, but they are fundamentally different. Like one can have children, the other one cannot have children, and that's not mutually exclusive. Like there are some women who cannot have children, but I'm unaware of any people that were born biologically as a male that can now have children whilst being a woman.
Can you understand why she was, not wanting to give a definition? Because I
Oh
can
yeah,
totally understand, right?
well, part of it is that, but it was also the council culture, then the whole
Yeah,
this whole stigma around it, which is like she didn't want to get
yeah,
roasted by everybody because
exactly.
yeah, so um, yeah, which is another crazy thing, which is just like
Yeah,
yeah, we can't even say things that we've sort of deemed to be truths for the longest part of human existence. Now they're taboo. Now we can't even talk about them. And I'm not saying like anyone's right or wrong. I think we still got a lot to figure out about life. Don't get me wrong. But I think some
yeah,
of these things are getting stretched to the points of just like ludicrousness, like absolute ludicrousness.
yeah. Look how far it's come to the point where people are scared to say the truth.
Oh
It's
yes, oh
absurd.
yeah. The closest approximation to the truth we have so far that tends
Yeah,
to do
yeah,
pretty well. You know what I mean? Like it's been pretty useful. I don't see the utility in this new way. I don't see what we gain from this new system. So unless you're presenting like something that's more useful, right? Why are we abandoning these historically useful ones?
Exactly, exactly. And I just want to be clear with everybody. Neither Ruben or I have any issues with how people want to live their lives, but the system is hijacking some of these situations and
Right.
forcing certain truths down our throats that aren't real and not allowing us to say the truth. And that's where we have a problem with it.
Yeah, my big thing is, I'm against this. All this, it appears as if it's being weaponized, right? Because it's really, really getting to a point where it's just ludicrous. You can't even keep track of some of these conversations because of how convoluted and twisted and just ridiculous they get. And putting the burden on other people to know pronouns and all this other stuff. It's cumbersome. It's so cumbersome. It's like we're getting trapped in our own word games kind of thing. And to be perfectly honest, like I have a gay dad, I had a tranny nanny, I have a very diverse upbringing. No judgment to it. If you want to live your life in a certain way, go and do it, provided it doesn't negatively impact other people, right? Like, physically. Outside of that,
Exactly.
do whatever you want behind closed doors, as long as it doesn't involve small children, like go for it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I always remember in groups of this would happen more in the workplace, I believe, because not really with our group of friends. In the workplace, you would have an employee, a coworker, who would be sensitive to certain things, and you would have to tiptoe around them, and people would be afraid to ask them to do certain things, and people would get annoyed, like, well, why isn't X person X getting treated the same way as everybody else? Why is everybody tiptoeing around this sensitive person? And I remember I had this conversation with my mom before. Well, I'll bring my mom up again. Shout out my mom. So, and she was wondering why in a lot of situations we always have to tiptoe around the weakest person to not hurt their feelings. It's bullshit. And I feel like the system is doing the same fucking thing. There's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
very
no,
low percentage of people complaining, getting triggered, and changing policies.
yeah. It's all getting amplified through the system.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's make this positive, right? What can someone do to minimize if you're someone that gets triggered easily, right? If you're someone that struggles with any of this, or if you know people that do, what can you yourself do? All right. So I think first and foremost, most important thing is nothing is inherently good or bad. Things are what we make them. Okay. What we make them. Any situation you give me, I could always make it worse and I could always make it better. Any situation. You imagine the worst possible thing you can imagine right this second, and then I could make it worse instantly. Right. So you could always make things worse. You can always make things better. So choose to find the most useful way to see something. So if something's happening, you can't control it, don't let it affect you. All right. Or choose to see it in a way that adds value to your life instead of detracts. And it might feel good to get triggered to something or by something. You might be stuck in that loop, but look at the long term consequences. Where does it leave you? All right. What's the utility in it? Is there anything that you think people could utilize or benefit from? Or skills like we've spoken about our own experience, but any for you that you found?
Yeah. So I'm going to bring up this
Oh,
article that I
you've
found.
got a list.
I'm trying to remember what it says at the top here. Just give me 1 second. It's a list of things that people are triggered by, but the actual definition of being triggered, right?
Yeah.
And basically, um, well, the actual definition is something along the lines of it. It gives you this. You have this emotional experience, and then you sort of lose control, right? And so this is 27 of the weirdest things that trigger people's anxiety. And some of these are kind of cool. We can talk about them. Not knowing where the bathroom is, right? Interesting one. Late, being late or
Oh,
early.
wait.
Yeah.
Does that own, like, okay, if you are someone who's incontinent or like you have a very small bladder, or like I can understand getting anxiety if you don't know where a bathroom is.
Yeah.
Ha- What the fuck?
Yeah, so I'm hoping because there's some of these, I was thinking about what like your question was like, what are some tactics you can do to sort of overcome it? And some of these on the list will give us some good ideas of how you can overcome these things, right? But it basically just comes down to just rationalizing things. Like, what is going to happen to you if you don't know where the bathroom is in this instance? Like, really, what is going to happen? And like Ruben said, unless you're having the shits or something,
Yeah,
all
like
right.
I can imagine if I ate bad food and my stomach's rumbling and I go somewhere new and I don't know where the bathroom is, I might be concerned. But it's that real. That's a one of the 27 things that trigger people's anxiety.
One of the 27 weirdest things.
Should just make an app for people that just literally like we just like get the plans for every building in the world, map out their toilet bathroom situations, and just like cure
Yeah,
your anxiety. Download our app that has every bathroom listed in the world.
hilarious. Ordering at a restaurant. Do you think this could be something along the lines of, oh damn, I hope I sound cool, or I hope I don't fuck up my order, or when I begin to speak, I don't stutter. I'm wondering like exactly what it is about ordering food.
Oh,
I
right. Keep going with this. Is gold. This is
Yeah,
flying.
yeah, it's funny, right? Okay, I'll skip some of them. Choosing a book to read.
People get anxious about choosing a book.
I might miss out on a really good book, and that gives me anxiety.
I wonder if okay, I want to find some of these people. I wonder if there's a group. We can just go and post shit like even if you read, if you could read a book a second, you would never be able to read all the books that were ever written. I wonder how much anxiety that would give them.
Yo, you can't say that. That's triggering, guy. Making a phone call.
Yeah, to like your boss, like if you fucked up and it's to your boss, I can understand, but like that's just a general statement.
Talking on the phone, having to make a call. That sets me off. It also gets me, also typo here, reeling. It also gets me reeling. Is that a word, reeling?
Yep. Uh,
When people tell me, just pick up the phone and call. If it's something that has to be done, it takes me several tries and finally I succeed. However, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for a voicemail.
wow.
Making a mistake while cooking. This next one
Okay.
seems serious. Sorry, go
I
ahead.
just quickly, I got a definition of reeling: staggering or swaying, unable to walk straight because of a blow, intoxication, etc. It seemed as if a reeling drunken giant had set the route for the race. Apparently,
I've never heard of that word before.
okay, so it rocks them essentially, like it's unsettled them.
I
I can
see.
imagine it being used in that way. But yeah,
Well, good thing I'm an idiot. Doesn't even matter.
so much to learn.
When it gets dark outside. I mean, that one is crazy because that happens every day.
Literally, and
So,
okay, yeah. If you're three, if you're four, right? If okay, can I just one of the most gangster things I've ever heard? This is like going off the darkness run, right? So the world's richest man, or second, third, whatever, Elon Musk, right? Amazing, big fan of Elon. He used to be afraid of the dark, right? When he was a kid. And so he's like, he hated it. It was crippling for him. Okay. And then he's like, hold up, I'm just going to think through this. So he went, he rationalized, right? Like he went through and thought about it. Okay. And he's like, hold up. The only thing that's different between night and day is photons. So when it's dark, it's just the absence of photons. Why would I be afraid of that? And then he's afraid of it again.
Yeah. Yo, Elon's
Like
the best. That's funny.
there's
That's funny.
something in there about like, is it people who are easily triggered or who have these highly emotional responses just don't have the tool set or the ability or the willingness? Because I believe that these things are intrinsic within all of us. Like, I don't think I'm special. I actively acknowledge that I'm an idiot. And if I can do it, I'm like, how can't anyone else do it? That's kind of like my default belief. Because I know how far I've come. I know like how stupid I really was, you know, like I own all of that. But like they just don't allocate the time and energy to think through things. They act like they're told they don't have to, or that like there's got to be something there. Do you know what I mean? Like Elon as a kid thought through that and realized that it's just the absence of photons. Like I feel like that truth is available to all humans.
If you can't accept a rational answer, you will never be able to get over your anxieties, your triggers. Sorry.
It's also if you don't want it to be true, right? Like you have to be willing. Like this is the crazy thing about truths is that they don't really give a shit about your feelings. So just because you don't want something to be true doesn't make it not true. Like they exist outside of what you want or what like or don't like, if that kind of makes sense. Yeah, but if you're not willing to accept the harshness of a truth, well, then you're trapped forever, kind of thing.
Exactly. You're trapped forever. That's exactly what it is. And I feel like instead of trying to accommodate people's triggers, we need to be teaching them, rationalizing with them. I mean,
Or just
other people's voices.
they snap.
What's that?
Or just triggering them till they snap.
Yeah, just triggering. Yeah.
No, we
But I
shouldn't
mean,
laugh. There are legitimate triggers, okay? There is legitimate
yeah,
triggers.
you're right.
But there is a lot of illegitimate triggers, okay? Let's be real about it.
This one's funny. Other people's voices. People who talk too much. Not even necessarily to me. But if I'm in a group and someone just talks and talks and talks, it triggers me.
Oh,
I mean,
that is a good one. Other people's voices.
you can't leave the house. You can't go anywhere. You are stuck at home. And your family is accommodating this bullshit.
Literally.
Imagine trying to speak to her. You say, we need to talk about your problem. No, stop it. You're triggering me. Your voice is triggering me. But we need to discuss this issue. No, I can't. I can't.
Imagine if you dated her and you had a really long proposal and you were getting into your proposal and it triggered her.
That's hilarious. Hilarious.
So one little thing, because we both do this, and it only just became apparent that we talk about it a lot, but it only just became apparent that this is actually what it is. We've inverted a lot of triggers because there was a time in my life where that would trigger me. I'm sure you've had times in your life where you'd get triggered, right? I know for myself, and I know for you too, we've both turned those into lols. So things that used to trigger us, we now lol at or laugh out loud at all the time. So we turned the triggering stuff, the things that used to piss us off or, you know, like annoy us. We try to turn them into lols now. You say that's a good sort of summary of how, like we even do that in some of the group chats, etc. Like it's all about the lols.
Absolutely. It feels so good to laugh at your mistakes or your downfalls or yeah, what you said exactly. It feels good to laugh about everything, to be honest.
Have you got one more on that list, or is that the last one?
There's lots. There's lots more.
Let's just do one more, and then what I think we should do is next week we should put together a more structured deep dive into this through emotions, through through that whole epistemology, belief system, that whole thing. What do you reckon?
Yeah, that sounds great. This one's kind of funny. Having to poop at work. Yo, I used to jerk off at work, dude. Like if I was bored, I was like, yo, I just don't feel like working right now, or if I didn't have much to do, sometimes I would just go in the bathroom and just rub one out. Like I can't even imagine having anxiety about having to take a shit at work. I've
Yeah.
had sex with girlfriends in bathrooms at work. I've smoked weed at work and still didn't feel anxious.
Yeah. Yeah, no, hey, if you're ever going to feel anxious, smoke some weed and then go around other people, right? Like that's one way to get yourself feeling anxious.
Yeah,
Probably
yeah,
there. Yeah, no, it's
yeah.
crazy. There's got to be something in it, man. That it like it starts out really little and it becomes a loop that people they get caught. Like it's like a vortex, man. They get sucked into this vortex and they can't stop those behaviors. They can't stop the feeling. They can't stop that kind of stuff. It's a fascinating thing. I'm mad like that you just like literally owned that you jacked off at work. I love that.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Even I worked at a garden center at Zares. So if anyone is in the garden center at Zares in Cambridge, at the Cambridge Center, I jerked off in that bathroom at that Zares, the public one that customers use as
Yeah.
well. So if anyone's in there, remember that I was
And
jerking off in that
selfies,
bathroom.
selfies.
Or sorry, I mentioned the garden center. So sometimes I would work in the garden center at that stairs, and I had sex with my girlfriend in the porta potty
Oh
in
no.
that at the garden center. So if you ever use the porta potty at that stairs, remember that I fucked my girlfriend in there, my ex girlfriend.
Uh, hey, quick question: were you more productive after that, or less productive after that?
uh, those days I did my job, but I did the bare minimum,
Yeah.
to be honest. So I couldn't say, but I worked there for 5 years, so that's rare. Some loyalty, right?
Hey, okay, quick. I'm genuinely curious in this, right? So
Yeah.
you just said you did your job, you did the bare minimum, right? I remember a time in my life when that was literally me. I exact same thing. But that's changed over time. What do you think it is that causes that change?
For me, I thought it was cool doing the bare minimum. I even acted like that in high school as well. I wanted to be in like the group of the cool kids, and I perceived cool people doing the bare minimum. So I took on that identity so I could also feel cool. And as soon as I realized that, yo, like it's just not cool and you can't get ahead in life being that way, I, I flipped the switch. But I was like that for a long time, actually, up until I started university. When I got to university was really the first time I really turned it on, to be honest.
So, um, would this be a fair way of saying that? you you tried that behavior because like you observed other people doing it, so you tried it. You timed them. You like mimetically copied them, so to speak, and
Hmm.
because you thought you would get a certain outcome. But
Yeah.
after doing it for an extended period of time, you didn't get those outcomes. And so then you had to update what it is you were doing, right? Because you accepted the truth that doing this isn't getting you what you want.
I, I mean, long term, yeah, exactly. In the moment, it was getting what I wanted because I was considered cool and I was friends with everybody. And we laughed about not doing a lot of work. We laughed about going to smoke weed during work. We laughed about, you know, jerking off in the bathroom. So I was with that group and I thought like, yo, these are the cool people. What I perceived to be cool. So I wanted to be with them, close to them. But not only that, I wanted to like excel at what they were doing because I didn't want to be, you know, I wanted to be like doing the shit that made everybody else laugh.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. You didn't want to be middle of the pack cool kid. You wanted to be the coolest cool kid.
I wanted to be the coolest. Yeah. I also loved attention. I still do like attention, but I loved attention. I would just do crazy shit just for attention. And man, the way I felt after, like everybody laughing, looking at what I did, and I didn't give a fuck if I was embarrassing myself. Actually, those were my favorite moments when I was just purely embarrassing myself and seeing the reaction of other people. Okay, here's the best look. When you do something embarrassing and a bro looks at you disgusted. That is so satisfying for some reason. I don't know what it is, but like the bro's
Pushing
like,
the
yo,
limits.
like, what's that?
Pushing the limits.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll give like a small example because I can't think of a better one right now. But dressing up as a woman for Halloween, but like really, really slutty, like wearing like basically nothing. And then bros are like, yo, what the fuck's up with this guy? That look gave me so much satisfaction.
Yeah, yeah. But it's because like when you don't give a fuck in that regard, it's a superpower.
Yeah.
It's like you know, like you are bulletproof essentially. Like, you know what I mean? Like them getting offended is showing that they obviously have an issue with it. And I don't know, it's a weird thing in life, but whenever someone appears to have such a big issue with something that's kind of trivial, that's probably an indicator that they've got some sort of issue with it, like within themselves. Like, you know, people that are overly homophobic, right? Well, there's a lot of cases where those people turn out to be gay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like their
Yeah.
issue is actually like the fact that they triggered by it illuminates an issue within themselves. That comes back to that whole, if you're fat and someone says you're fat, it's actually your problem. It's not theirs. Like you're the one that has the problem, really and truly. Guy, I was going to make a funny statement, like when you were saying like I just embarrass myself or I love attention. I was like, yeah, says the guy wearing a fucking fruit salad shirt.
Yeah, so I still have that in me, dude. I still like attention. Not like before, but yeah, I'm guilty, bro. It is what it is. And yeah.
It's a completely different way now, don't you think?
Yeah, it's in a healthier way, I would say. But
Yeah.
I also enjoy speaking in front of people as well. My favorite moments in university was always getting in front and presenting projects. Like I loved that thrill of like everybody watching me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Attention.
So it's I think I could it's a more healthier way, but who knows if it's unhealthy? I mean, I would have to really analyze that. It could be. I could have an unhealthy um, tolerance for wanting attention. It's quite possible.
No, yeah, I don't know. I think it's all in how you use it, and if you identify like why it is that you enjoy that. I think you enjoy connection with people, and I think that ties into your what attention. I don't think it's just solely for attention. I think it's you actually just really enjoy connection with people. That's my experience, right? I'm sure
Yeah.
there's a bunch of other things at time, but honestly, that's what I get, right? When you were saying that, I just remembered this phenomena that's happening at the moment. And this is what sparked the original wanting to talk about Triggered. Chicks in the gym now, right, wearing almost no clothes, okay, waiting for a dude to just look up and then being like, are you objectifying me? Have you seen this trend that's happening? Like, it's dangerous.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's dangerous for a dude in 2023 to not look at his phone or not look at the floor when in a gym.
I mean, I think we brought this up on another episode actually, and you made a very good point.
What were we talking about last week?
I think so. I think so. But you made such a good point, and it's worth mentioning again, actually. Damn.
Insert edit.
No, fuck it. Everything's staying in. Everything's staying in. Yeah, well, you, I don't want to say it because you articulated it so well, but you mentioned that that person has created like this sort of
Oh,
hell for themselves.
they're living in hell within themselves because they want attention. Oh, yeah, that was the whole point, right? So they want attention, but when they get the attention, they've now made it into this negative thing, right? So they wear the clothes and they go to do this stuff to feel sexy within themselves, right? But then
Yeah.
as soon as somebody looks at them, they're being objectified. So they want to be sexy, they want to feel sexy, but as soon as somebody does the thing that would happen if someone sexy was there, they then get the shits. So they've created their own hell. And like that divergent thing where they want attention, but when they get it, it's bad.
So is she legit triggered by this? Or is this
Apparently happening. Apparently this is a really big thing. I don't train at a regular gym, so I'm not fully aware of these things. I only see what
yeah.
people send me or what I'm, if I'm talking to someone comes up. But
Yeah.
apparently this is a really big thing nowadays.
I remember when I was in Canada last, because I've been living outside of Canada for 4 years, and in the last 4 years in South America, I remember that it was not cool to talk to girls in the gym, hit on girls at the gym. It was just like the culture, like you should not talk to any girls. And I have actually had a conversation with girls about this at the time, and one response I got was, I feel gross at the time because I'm sweaty, I'm not at my best. And I know, but to me, you are at your best. You know what I mean? Like a girl working out, like that's mad sexy.
Okay.
So it was just one girl's opinion. I feel like sometimes when you ask people these types of questions, they don't give you like the real what the real answer is. They give you some sort of answer that you can digest. So I don't necessarily believe that answer.
Well, my whole thing is if you're actively going to the gym to try and pick up, that's a fool's errand. It's just stupid. Go to the gym to train. If you're going to pick up and everyone else is going to train, you're just going to piss people off because it's obvious that you're there to pick up and not train. Whereas a gym is for training, it's not for picking up. Like you've got a much better chance of picking up at the gym by going there to train and just living your best life than you do trying to pick up at a gym. That kind
Yeah.
of makes sense. Like, I what? Okay, when I was younger, everybody wants girl. Like my social group, all the guys want the girls, and they're all trying to get this girl or get that girl, and they'd all try really hard to get the girls. And sometimes it would work, but oftentimes it wouldn't. And guys would go out like, let's go out tonight and try and pick up girls or meet girls or whatever. And it's like, to me, that's the entirely wrong reason to go out. If you go out to have a great time, you end up having a great time. And a consequence of that sometimes is you meet someone that you connect with and you can have an even better time, right? Like you end up picking up a
Absolutely.
girl. But when you actively go
Absolutely.
out for that thing, you push it away. When you go out to just have the best time, make the most of your time, all of these things end up coming to you. And so it's like,
Absolutely.
don't go to the gym to pick up, go to the gym to train and become a savage and get great at whatever it is you're trying to do, because that's actually what's going to attract the other person. They will be attracted to those traits about you that you love about you. And so you'll find someone that's aligned with you. Like going to the gym and just being like, oh, hot girl, I want to try and pick her up. Or like, that's only going to push that girl away. And like, it's typical. You're not even going to be a good match for each other. Like,
That is such, sorry, continue.
no, you go. That was it.
That is such solid advice. If you want to attract girls, work on yourself first and
Literally.
don't worry about it and allow it to just naturally come to you. That is such great advice, dude.
Yeah, but it's inevitable. That's the crazy thing is it's inevitable. If you do you fully fulfill yourself, you pursue all your want, like what you want to become, you build it, they will come. Like, and
Yeah.
it's how you meet other people that are interested in similar things to you, people who have similar values and beliefs to you as well. That's the trick.
It's just funny the evolution of being triggered, how we can map it to the gym culture. 4 years ago, you shouldn't be picking up girls at the gym. 2023, don't look at a girl in the
Yeah,
gym.
yeah. Legit. Oh, that's a good point
Yeah.
to close on. That's a great point to close on. You can't even look at a girl in the gym.
All right, dude.
Yeah, you can't even be sure that it is a girl in the gym.
Oh, that's
You can't even
true.
make an
You
assumption
need,
nowadays.
that's right. Damn, that's funny.
Yeah,
That's really
legit.
funny.
All right. That was actually pretty decent. But okay, let's put this together as a whole thing. Let's map the whole, like, see if we can actually put some steps together with this. What do you reckon?
Yeah.
All right.
And
Wait.
so, can you just go over what we're doing next week?
Well, I think what we should go through is, epistemology or belief system, what
Yeah.
emotions are, all right, how we construct them, or the theory of constructed emotion. We can discuss more about these triggers and certain common pitfalls that might occur. But I think developing a better understanding of what emotions really are helps, or what they're what they're effectively modeled as, right, in the theory of constructed emotions, has been incredibly valuable for me. And I think that putting that together in a clearly articulated way might be beneficial for other people, especially if they're struggling with some of these things.
I love the idea. So next week we'll come back and talk about emotions, essentially. Okay.
Emotions are
All right. Nice. Nice.
hell yeah.
All right. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Talk shit. Let us know what big idiots we are. Jesus of Nazareth, we're waiting for some more comments from you and to come on the show. Also, share the video with your friends and family.
Yeah. And fuck around and find out.
Yeah.
Peace. Like and
All right.
subscribe.
All right. Peace, bro.